and route modernization. We're very privileged to be joined by a member of the National Assembly of South Africa, Honorable Darren Bergman, Member of Parliament. Can I welcome you on stage with a warm round of applause for your special address?
Thank you very much. Thanks for the warm welcome. The speaker earlier today, when speaking about AR, spoke about glasses, and he mentioned that he had glasses that could tell him the translation about the writing. So I was hoping that he had the glasses here so he could tell me what I wrote in my speech today. But I wanted to talk about, for those of you that have ever been to London and you've been on the metro, you've heard the saying, mind the gap, mind the gap. Well, for those of you that have been to South Africa, and for those of you that are traveling here in India, you will experience the gap, because the gap is very visible. You see, in Africa and in India, the gap is between the have and those that don't have. And you can see it when you drive past and you see these beautiful buildings, you see these beautiful houses, and then you see other areas. And that today, ladies and gentlemen, is the challenge that I speak about, because my experience comes from Africa. I've come from the executive of SADC, I come from the African Liberal Network, and I can tell you that Africa is a very blessed region. It's blessed with natural resources, a balanced climate, and some of the best strategic areas of land. Africa is rich in resources and beauty, yet it has endured exploitation, corruption, and poor governance throughout its history. Slavery, colonialism, tribal wars have ensured that Africa has remained in a stagnant state of victim mentality and has a pot to be plundered from. To appease guilt, we have swallowed a lot of aid that is often swallowed way before it reaches any of the intended recipients. We have seen French, British, Portuguese seeking their new place in Africa. With aid and opportunity, the intentions have been good, to reverse decades of degradation and turn it into prosperity within just a few years of projects. But this is not sustainable, because when aid does not reach its intended target, countries are not seeing returns on their projects. More money is being spent on less, and less is being achieved. Leaders of countries and their closest allies in government continue to live completely out of touch, in stark contrast to the masses of their populations. Their children are schooled in other countries, often in Europe, and the suffering continues, and the problems continue. Conferences and organizations have been established to network governments and businesses from these countries and across Africa. They speak about ambitious opportunities and goals. However, these events become talk shops. And even more troubling is that for many reasons, not least the translation aspect, the delegates from the opposite ends of the room tend to speak past each other. In my experience, it was interesting to see some of these priorities. On the one side of the room, I would hear a person get up from Africa, and I'm sure it was no different to India. They would speak about how hungry they are. They would speak about how they need a job. And they would speak about how they need shelter. And they would beg from the other side for help. On the other side, in the next moment, a delegate would get up and say that our air quality is poor and that we're not looking after our animals. Now, in swift translation, it seems that my counterpart cares more about the air quality and animals than they do about my fellow neighbors. Of course, that's not true. We all know that both issues are just as important and both could lead to the same problems. China sees a wonderful opportunity in Africa. India sees wonderful opportunity in Africa in terms of ports, trade. China knows that they can buy raw resources in Africa, get them back to China as cheaply as possible. They can then manufacture them into these amazing products and then sell them back to us at four times the product, 4 times the price. And unfortunately, as much as Africa has been lobbied to increase their intra-African trade, it still sits at a paltry 15%. And one of the saddest reasons for this is the poor infrastructure between countries in Africa. Now, one can import a full 20-foot container from China to Kenya for $1,000. They can even get it there within 3 weeks, maximum. But to move that container anywhere from Kenya to anywhere in Africa, that very same container will cost anywhere from $1,600 to $3,000, more expensive than bringing it from China to Kenya. And more importantly, to get it from anywhere in Kenya to anywhere in Africa, south or north, it would take longer by road and by rail than it would by ship from China to Africa than by truck from Africa to country. However, the ever-efficient China has seen that, they build trucks, heavy-duty trucks every 6 minutes. They can build a station and railway within a night. I've seen this happen. They can see a gap. Now, these economic issues in Africa, no different, I'm sure, as we've seen in Asia, lead to another issue. Africa is a hotbed for terrorism. Recruitment, training, fundraising, they are easy due to the poverty and the lack of enforcement. Lack of opportunities, hunger, drought, civil war create the elements for migration, and the first destination of choice is Europe. Many countries are already circling Africa like vultures, looking for opportunities that may present themselves. And so when I talk about mind the gap, today, like a conference like this is important because I talk about solutions. And so many people spoke today about AI. So many people spoke today about the future and looking into the future. The most important thing that I heard today was the trust cooperation, because that's what it's going to take. To close the gap, we need to look at the have and the have-nots. We need to look at this Maslow hierarchy of needs. When you look at the hierarchy of needs, what the poor want and what the wealthy have are two different things in terms of need. On the one hand, you're looking at people that need jobs. You're looking at people that you need to close the Gini coefficient. So what they need is skills. They need education. They are vulnerable in terms of gender. They're vulnerable in terms of age. They're vulnerable in terms of disability and illness. Some of them need justice, restorative justice. And in a conference like this, it would be remiss not to mention that they need AI and they need Wi-Fi. What could the other side do? The other side needs to protect the climate. The other side needs to look at something like the UNDP report, where we speak about the quality of life, water quality, electricity, education, crime, the life expectancy in a country. We look at peace. We look at war. And someone said it today again. Yoga is, you don't need war and terror. You just introduce sports. You introduce something as relaxing and calming as yoga, and that will take away. Sport tourism will take away from terror. Technological advancements. Make woke, take away woke, look at your human rights, how you treat it. So if you look at trust and you break trust up, what you're really looking at, the T is a trade, technology, tourism. That's what a country has to look at when they want to trade bilaterally. R is reliability. How reliable are the countries making themselves? Do they stick to their word? Do they stick to the rule of law? Do you know their policies, and do you know what their national interest is? U is for understanding. Do you know their culture? Do you know their human rights record? Do you know their degree of freedom? S is for sports, competitiveness, their culture, and synergy. And lastly, because I see my time is up, treaties, twinning, and terms. That is how you wrap that whole offering up. Multilateralism. BRICS is instead of inviting everyone into BRICS, you need to focus and use your power to increase trade, but not aid. Ladies and gentlemen, more of these conferences. Thank you very much.